In this demo, we will be looking at an outbound traffic protection with URL filtering use case. For that, we are going to have a development cluster for Acme Core, and it's a 3-node cluster. So as you can see that each node has a CN series firewall deployed as a daemon set, and within a 3-node cluster, we will have two namespaces. One is development namespace and the second one is the staging namespace. Now inside the development namespace, we have two pods. One is Jenkins and then the second one is the front-end voting app. Now the objective here is that from Jenkins pod, we want to make sure that the outbound access is only allowed to github.com/Palo Alto Networks. So any other repo that Jenkins pod is trying to access, that has to be strictly blocked. However, from front-end pod, we want to make sure that access is allowed to all the repos, and also any Git operation is allowed, like push, pull, and all others. We are looking at a Panorama with Kubernetes plugin already installed and the clusters added here. This is a dev cluster where we have Jenkins and front-end pod added in those two namespaces. Now, quickly looking at the objects, I have already added Jenkins and front-end apps, and you can see that they have the private IP addresses for each of these pods. The way you do that is by, in a similar fashion, how you do it for the VM series plugin. You go ahead and look at the address objects, and by selecting the type as dynamic, it allows you to pull in various Kubernetes resources and labels that are available here. So based upon whether it's a namespace or a cluster or any other label that you have for that pod, you can go ahead and add them as an address object and create the policies. Quickly review the policies for Jenkins and frontend. The one point to note here for Jenkins pod is the URL filtering category, where we have specifically said that only GitHub download operation is allowed, and the URL filtering categories for Palo Alto Networks only. Whereas when we look at the front-end app pod, we'll see that we have the access allowed to all the repos. So let's look at the front-end policy. The source is from front-end app, destination will be any destination, and then when we look at the actions category, here the URL filtering is default. So that's how within the same cluster we have two different pods with two different set of policies or the access permissions. That's the granular level of visibility and control that CN series is providing. Now coming back to the GKE cluster, just verifying that within the dev namespace we have these three pods, front-end, back-end, and Jenkins running in development namespace. We are now inside the Jenkins pod and we'll do those both operations. Try to download the code from Palo Alto Networks repo, as well as in the next step, let's go ahead and download the WWC repo. So the first one went through and this one should get denied. So I'm looking at github.com WWC, and once I do the git clone operation, as expected, this operation is denied because from Jenkins, only Palo Alto Networks repo is allowed. Moving on to the front-end pod, both these operations will go through because that's how we have the policies configured. So now coming back here and doing it for Palo Alto Networks, and again this will be allowed, and we can verify that after this we'll verify it on the log on Panorama. So now coming back to Panorama, if you look at the URL fitting logs, it clearly shows that the WWC repo, we were able to successfully decrypt the packet from Jenkins server and be able to find out that the subdomain is not allowed. So it's github.com wwc subdomain is not allowed, so we were able to block that.